Russian oligarchs are unhappy with Putin, not because of the war, but because China is actively causing them to lose billions. The crisis began with a massive public humiliation. Putin wanted to show the world that sanctions aren't really hurting. But his big reveal of Russia's first humanoid AI robot, the launch went so badly that even Russian propagandists are now calling it a joke, and others are suggesting that Russia has made the world's first drunk robot. But this embarrassment is justified. This tech failure proves that the crisis is profound. Millions of Russian tech workers have fled the country since the invasion began, and now the Russian tech industry has become a laughingstock. But the real betrayal is economic. China is now dumping all its excess production into the Russian market, triggering a collapse of Russian factories. Even Russian CEOs are publicly complaining that China's unfair subsidies are hollowing out Russian manufacturing and other sectors, proving that Russia is now failing because its closest ally is using it as target practice. Let's start with this AI humanoid robot though, because it really puts the Russian industry on the world stage. Everyone was watching this event because Russia wanted to show off its first humanoid robot, AI robot. I think they just threw in all the buzzwords they could find. But the launch did not go according to plan at all. Take a look. Now, some people are saying that that's not a robot, it's just Dmitry Medvedev in a suit. But the theory I find more believable is that Russia has made world's first drunk robot, which is honestly more fitting for a country like Russia. And on top of that, it gives Russia what they really want, becoming a country to do something first. But it seems like some Russian propagandists are not happy about how this whole thing went. Just take a listen to this reaction.
Pardon me, friends. I'm in a state of light fury. For some reason, yesterday in our country there was a presentation of a humanoid robot. Listen, simply explain it to me. What are you doing? What are you doing? And what for? This company was recently created, and therefore they took it to show it off here and there. So tremendous. Money was already allocated. I can't use curse words, but so you understand it was a lot. Here, to the music from Rocky, they bring out on stage a Russian man, Idol. Two guys are accompanying him. He falls the heck down. They pick him up to the same music and 3 people drag him off. They also rush to cover him up with some fabric. Was this a part of filming a movie about how to steal the government's money? Or private money? What was this all about? What was this endless shame all about? Meanwhile, so you don't have any illusions. Simultaneously, Chinese comrades, not to even mention Elon Musk, who is promising an army of 1 million humanoid robots by the middle of next year or by the end of next year. I'm at a loss for words because of my hatred. These humanoid robots will be able to do everything. Why the heck are you doing this? Just explain it to me. Why did you cause this shame before the whole world? Why? Who did this? A market source told RIA Novosti that the cost of idle may be between 100 million and 300 million rubles.
Миллионов рублей? Вы зачем выползли на сцену?
Why did you crawl up on stage? Why did you showcase this shame? It's on the level of a child's toy.
Уровня детской игры.
I'm gonna come out and say it. I don't think that guy is buying one of these robots. Me though, I think I'll get one. Now, the company that actually made this robot put out a statement right after this, and that statement is unbelievable. But before we read that, I want to give you guys a quick background into the founder or the CEO of the company. His name is Vladimir Vilichuk, and he's actually a former government employee. He used to work in the IT department of Putin's government. But in 2023, he left Russia, much like many IT workers who lived in the country, and now he's based in Dubai. That's where he's running the company from. Now, this is something we'll talk about in just a second because it's a huge problem for the Russian economy. All these skilled workers are just packing up and leaving. But before that, I want to show you guys the statement this company put out. They said that they're puzzled with all the attention this clip is getting because after all, and I want to emphasize that this is not a joke. These next words are the words the company put out in a statement. Not a joke at all. The company said in a statement that it is among the most advanced companies in Russia and it is on par with leading international companies. After reading something like that, I think they're just memeing the whole world at this point. And maybe it is Medvedev in a suit. But let's move on to a more serious point, because this whole thing exposes a big problem that the Russian economy is actually facing. And that problem is the Russian tech exodus. Russian tech workers have just left the country ever since the invasion started. But this trend really accelerated in September of 2022 because that's when Putin wanted to do a mass mobilization after his 3-day special military operation turned into something that's a lot longer than 3 days. Because the Russian economy has been pushed back so much in this sector that it's almost impossible to recover in a short time, even if the war stops tomorrow. And this is something we talked about with an economist, about how this will all play out in the long term. So here's a clip from that interview. One of the biggest factor, at least that I think, is the Russians leaving Russia. And I would think that these are Russians who are a little bit well off, a little bit, higher economically, and a little bit smarter. And official stats.
Yeah.
Official stats were 900,000 people left by the October of 2022. I'm assuming that number is well over 1 million by now, and brightest and smartest Russians have left the country. What kind of toll will that have on the economy now and in the future, like let's say after the war?
Yeah, I really appreciate this comment because me being an economist, we as economists, we actually consider both capital and human resource, labor as the two major factors of production in any economy. And often people forget about the labor, which in this case, as you pointed out, Russia is really bleeding. We are talking about at least 1.5 million people that left. And as you pointed out, these are people that are usually more well off. They're better educated. They usually speak some sort of foreign language so that it's easier for them to assimilate in other countries. I had a couple of friends in Russia, and all of them pretty much left after the full-scale invasion because they were very vocal against the war, and the FSB, Russian, basically former KGB, was literally after them. So they had to leave, and many people left. Add to that mobilized soldiers, so people that are actively in the military have been mobilized. And so we are talking about 3 million, at least 3 million Russians that are not a part of the working population. Now, add to that the aging population right now. Russia has one of the worst cases of the aging population and demographic crisis when you just don't have the birth rates. I mean, Russia is shrinking on the population. It's been shrinking, and especially in the past couple of years. And so the impact will be felt long term, right? So the labor impact it's already being felt in many sectors, and especially in the sector of the civil economy. which is not a military economy. It's basically our daily goods and services that are used for the enjoyment of life. And that's something that Russia just cannot replace. And it's going to get only worse from here. It's not going to get better, even if the war stops. There's just, I think when the borders open up for the Russians to leave even more, I mean, they will leave. And nobody will want to come to Russia because it's not the kind of country you want to be at. So Russia really is at the impasse here. And this demographic crisis is going to be a huge problem. By the way, as a side note here, there's been a lot of basically talks at different levels at UN, and I've heard this. I'm on the board of directors of the organization called Save Ukraine, which returns the kidnapped children from Russia. And the talks are basically that partly to battle this demographic crisis, Russia is kidnapping and assimilating Ukrainian children because this is one way to repopulate your population. And so, as gruesome as it sounds, but Russia is literally committing genocide, and sort of almost forced to do it because their own population is leaving or dying out.
It seems Putin really killed Russia's future. But you know who loves taking advantage of a country that's struggling? China. That's not me saying it. That's coming from a Russian CEO, or I guess we can call him a Russian oligarch. And this is something that was posted in Russian media. This website is called Kommersant, and it's a pretty big Russian media website, and this was posted 3 days ago on November 12th. Let's take a look. The most serious problem facing the Russian economy is the expansion of Chinese imports. Now, this guy is the CEO of a pretty big tire company in Russia, and this company is like a high-end tire. It's not like average person tires, but even this company is struggling right now, and he explains why it's struggling in this interview with the Russian news outlet, and this is what he said. In fact, this is probably the most serious problem of the Russian tire market today, the expansion of the Chinese imports in the complete absence of any protective measures from the state. We talk a lot about this with government officials, but so far, we have not received the tangible support that local producers should count on. There are many reasons for this, but the fact remains a fact. I wonder why Putin does not want to stand up to Xi Jinping, especially right now. But let's continue. If the capacity of the passenger tire market in Russia last year was about 50 million tires, the Chinese imported 19 million units. Over the last 5 years, the share of Chinese brands in the Russian market increased from 11% to 35%, while production at local factories decreased. This is a big problem now, and it's primarily due to the fact that tires are supplied at a very low price. We believe that this is because of dumping, and it is a violation of fair competition. Now, of course, what China is doing is illegal, but Putin cannot do anything about it because Russia is just too dependent on Chinese companies and Xi Jinping. So, I do quickly want to explain what China is doing here and why it's illegal. You see, CCP has this unofficial policy where they want to make sure that the factories in other countries, more specifically factories in the United States and Europe, basically go out of business. China really does want to become like the only manufacturing hub of the world. And to make sure they achieve this goal, what CCP does is they basically give out free money to Chinese factories. To understand this properly, let's take steel for example, okay? Like steel factories for example. Chinese steel manufacturers are incentivized to produce so much steel every single year that they can fulfill the domestic demand inside China, and then they want to have enough production to export all that steel to other countries in Asia, countries in Europe, and United States. Now, how does China make sure that Chinese steel is still cheaper than all the domestic steel in all these other countries? Well, to do this, the CCP basically gives out free money by giving free land to these companies, giving them interest-free loans. They sometimes even give them cheap or even free electricity and bunch of other stuff. Now, because of all this, all these Chinese companies can produce their product, steel in this case, and sell it at a price that the foreign competitors cannot do because foreign companies actually have to make profit or even break even, right? Chinese companies don't care about making a profit because they're kind of getting free money from the government. Well, based on international law, this is illegal, and that's exactly why the United States and even European countries at the beginning of this year were having a trade war with China. And that trade war is still going on. We do have a trade deal with China, which in my opinion is not really enough, but that's a topic for a different video. But it's definitely a step in the right direction. Well, now that the Western countries are waking up to Chinese tricks, what do you think CCP is doing? They're just dumping a lot of that supply into Russia, and Putin has no leverage to do anything about it. Now, because of this, Russian factories are going out of business, especially factories that are not part of the defense industry, right? And Russia is gonna have a hard time recovering from this because it's not easy to build an industrial base. And this is something we have called out last year too. China is not an ally of Russia. Only reason they're so close right now is because it benefits China to be on the Russian side right now. And China can take advantage of Russia's weakness. Take a listen to this clip.
China is definitely not an ally of Russia. I mean, this Friends Without Limits, that was BS. But I think China, what they care about the most is maintaining status quo, maintaining access to cheap Russian oil and gas. They are anxious to start using the northern trade route that goes over the top of Russia through the Arctic as the climate continues to change and the polar ice cap continues to melt. Increasingly, China is going to want to use that, but Russia controls all of that right now. So they have an interest in keeping Russia in the fight. That's why they deliver parts and they do other things to help Russia, but trying to stop short of really antagonizing the United States enough that we would actually do something about it, because right now we don't really do anything about it. And I think that China also does not want to see Russia, the regime, defeated and collapsed, because then that would present some problems for themselves, that people could see that, you know, these autocratic dictatorial regimes are not unbeatable.